Welcome to the COVID-19 pandemic in my life video for today, Wednesday, 26th October 2022. What are my updates? Do I have any? It's like 7 something in the morning and it's on the earlier end of the 7th hour. Well, I was the last person up. My dad's up around 4 or 5 something. My mom's, it fluctuates with my mom. She can be like 6:30 normal, but it can be earlier or later. And yeah, I'll put it this way. I can get up before, I typically do get up before 7, but that doesn't mean I like get up and go downstairs before 7 kind of thing. Though I do eat breakfast pretty early. So that is how I started off today. And COVID-19 pandemic in my life. Today, I wrote and published per English Wikipedia time, which is Coordinated Universal Time. I started writing and published, so a very quick turnaround article, versus Maximus Williamson's page took me from starting writing to publishing was about 2 months. This one was a matter of hours of writing and publishing the article, and it was 2012 Junior Pan Pacific Swimming Championships. I am tagging that as part of my pandemic pit crew writing and publishing work on Wikipedia. Why? Because I've heard, and it's been consistent, that juniors are the most affected group, people just trying to get their foot in the door, with the second most affected group being people like my age who are just trying to get their foot. So I'm 30. So people in their late 20s, early 30s, or 40s who are just trying to get their first international competition under their belt. They're the second most affected group, and it's a very close second to the juniors. The juniors are the most affected group in comparison to those kind of like seniors, because they still have to go through the transition of living away from their parents for the first time, or like kind of going into the world. Even if they are like, what's the term these days? Trust fund babies. There's still an adulting aspect that comes with growing up. And so the people who are older, like my age or older or slightly younger, they have some of that adulting background, whereas the juniors don't. So there's like, that's kind of factors into the juniors being the most affected group, but it's not by a whole lot. They're the most affected by a very little bit over people like, if I were to get into international competition, I'd be this very close second most affected group by this pandemic kind of thing, currently anyway. And so I understand that part makes sense to me, and getting the first competition under the belt makes sense to me, but it was like, to truly understand how the like quote unquote pipeline has been affected and how these juniors have been affected, perhaps the best thing for me to do would be to make a Wikipedia page for a competition where things were functioning normally, so non-pandemic times. So essentially we can rule out swine flu time frame, so that was 2009 to 2010. It was like a year and a half or something like that. And then there's COVID-19 pandemic, which is ongoing. So just roll out those time frames and then choose something. And I was like, well, I made the 2022 Junior Pan Pacific Swimming Championships Wikipedia article already. Why not go and make the page for the thing that happened a decade earlier? And it was kind of like a holy grail, or not a holy grail, but it was held at a Veterans Memorial Aquatic Center in Honolulu, and I was living in Honolulu at the time, and I had friends who went to the 2012 Junior Pan Pacific Swimming Championships, and we talked about it afterwards. We talked about it on campus and stuff, because I was attending the University of Hawaii at Manoa, and it was kind of interesting because it was kind of the first international competition held in an area where I was living, where my social interactions were people, like I was the only decade plus competitive swimmer of the group. So I got to hear kind of perspectives from, one of my friends was an competitive artistic gymnast in her previous life, so to speak. There were athletes, there were people who had not ever done a sport competitively, so I got a bunch of like entirely new takes on the international swimming scene and international swimming championships specifically with the 2012 Junior Pan-Pacific Swim Championships, and I was like, wow, the swimming universe and the rest of the world view these competitions very differently. So I was like, it's good to like preserve that in some form. And I did not go to the championships themselves. My Chad did come and visit at the time, and my Chase did compete, and they're both older than me. And that's one thing that I think I still don't quite understand, so maybe that factors into making this article, the 2012 Junior Pan-Pacific Swimming Championships article as well, is there's FINA, the International Olympic Committee, USA Swimming, where USA stands for United States of America Swimming. A bunch of different governing bodies have this policy in effect that only applies to men, which as a woman, I'm kind of appreciative of. It makes me, I can say I respect women on the whole more than men, just because women choose to be transparent about their age in that sense. And just one kind of thing that it nudges it in women's favor over men, especially on the transparency front, is they have a policy where men are allowed to compete no matter their age as juniors. So like my Chase might have been 32, but he might have been competing as a 17-year-old. Why is that allowed? One, research finds that in swimming specifically, and some other sports, a person's performance actually depends on the number used as their age. And so they were like, okay, so that's part of it, is it doesn't actually, it's the number that matters, not that person's actual age. And so that went into it. The other part was when there are 6'8", 6'8", 12-year-olds that are actually 12 years old, there's a bit of the culture, if they want to keep the sport alive, you know, the first thing is going to be what drugs did they take as a kid to be that tall at that age. So essentially by allowing people who are older to compete, it normalizes the extremes in such a way that society doesn't end up attacking the sport of swimming and saying they must be cheaters because they're this tall or this big at a young age. So it's meant to kind of reinforce the extremities of the sport, which ends up resulting in severe neglect of people who are just normal sized and who might have had those spots otherwise. Again, this is a man thing, not a woman thing. And so as a woman, I just go, sometimes it's very hard to understand how men think. And then the other part of it, I'm guessing, it's been a while since I've read the policy, because I do have men who are older than me who compete, and the age on the document says they're younger than me, that kind of thing, when in reality their age is older. It's